Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of the Midweek Rewind. I'm Matt, and we got Pastor Brent here, and we're excited to do this once again and hopefully answer some questions you might have. So if you're new or if this is your first time watching with us, we're keeping track right here. If you have any questions for us, just write them here directly as a comment on this video. I'll keep tabs of them here, and we'll do our best to get to them here during the next 30 minutes. So thanks for those of you watching. And Brent, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So this week was week 3 of our series called Loaded Questions. We're talking about money and finances. So week 1 was about earning money. Week 2 was giving money. And this week was spending money.
Spending.
So what did you say on Sunday, Brent?
Well, the loaded question, and it's a loaded question for me, my definition is something that you have to think about. Like, you better not say yes too quickly because there's some meat behind the question. But the question was something along the line, are you willing to take an honest look at your spending? No period there. And like, make whatever changes that a Christ follower, a Christian should make to align your spending with God. So take a hard look and make some changes.
Yep, good. All right, so we'll get to that. But actually, before we get to that, we had one question last week that we didn't have time to get to. So I wanted to make sure we tackled that right off the bat here. So we had a question last week as we were talking about giving money. Someone asked us, what does God have in mind for the 10% that we give, and how is it to be used by the church? Really easy question, Brent.
Well, maybe not. So every church, or for that matter, every Christian ministry has a budget. So we have a budget. It's $2.3 million. And every church has that divided into a number of areas. Now, the question is, how does a church know the right way to spend the money that people give? Because it's entrusted to us as a church, and are we making good use of it? So the basic areas in the Bible where the church is expected to spend the money that people give are, 1, to meet the needs of people. So I looked up some verses. Acts 4, it says, from time to time, those who owned land or houses sold them, brought the money and put it at the apostles' feet. And here it is. It was distributed to anyone who had need. And so one area, it's really broad, that the church should spend the money that people give is for people in need. So that could be a homeless ministry in Wichita. It could be people overseas. It's a broad category, but it's great. It's a filter. People in need. There's specifics about widows in need. Paul collected money for the Jerusalem church. They were poor and they needed some money. So people in need, okay? A second area, and this sounds a little self-serving, but all the way back in the Old Testament, the tithes of people supported the priests and pastors. Thank you. You always have needed people to lead the temple ministries, people to be the leaders in the church. And so there's no apology, but it's a blessing for those of us who work in the church that we're actually paid to serve Jesus. But so people in need, and then the staff, the pastors, and then another big area, of course, is just the gospel, preaching, teaching our kids, sending missionaries overseas. So there's lots of biblical evidence for these 3 areas: people in need, leaders in the church, and getting the gospel out. And that has always cost money, and it still does. And so that's where it goes.
Yeah, that's good. So the Bible, or even like church history, doesn't really have a pie chart of this much goes here, this much goes here. So just there's kind of been some expectations along the way that have kind of developed that we're trying to settle into. Would you say that's true?
In North America, there is a very consistent division of church budgets. It's amazingly consistent. About 50% of a budget, and it doesn't matter if you're a small church or a big church, but consistently 50% of your budget is staff. Okay? 20% of your budget is operations, electricity, utilities, keeping the building up, insurance. 20% is local ministries like kids ministry and youth ministry, and then 10% goes out. So it's just got 50, 20, 20, and 10. I found a budget from our church from 1957.
Wow.
And it's that same division. They spent a little more on staff back then, 57%. Okay. We spend 50%.
Yep.
Okay. But it's that division. You got the staff, you got the facility, you've got the local ministry, and then you got giving away. Now we give away close to 20%. And so we give away more than most in our church budget.
Great. So hopefully we answered that question. We probably went into more detail than most of you care to know. But hey, for the person who asked the question, hopefully that's helpful.
Hopefully.
Yes. Okay, so back to spending money. Hey, that was a good transition. About how we should be spending money. You spent a lot of time on Sunday talking about greed, and it's okay for us to enjoy stuff, but it's not good for us to love stuff. So why don't you recap that, and how do we know if we're enjoying or loving our stuff?
And I won't drop the verses on you, but on Sunday, we looked at a couple of different verses that explicitly said God gives wealth and possessions for us to enjoy. He gives love. He gives faithfulness. He just gives stuff. He can't stop giving. That's who he is. And so there's this undeniable gift that we have that says, God, thanks for all this stuff that I can enjoy. But the Bible also teaches about the fuzzy line between enjoying and loving.
Right.
And I tried, stumble as I did on Sunday, to help us try to measure, do I love this stuff or do I just enjoy it? And the one suggestion I had was try and go without that thing. And I joked saying, if you start shaking and land in a fetal position in the corner of your living room, going through withdrawal, that might be a sign.
That's a good
that
sign.
You kind of love the stuff.
Right.
Like if you can't get by without your coffee and you start shaking, you get headaches, you might be addicted to it. If you can't get by without clothes shopping, if you can't get by without Netflix, if you can't get by without going into some withdrawal symptoms,
right.
Yeah, you ought to think maybe you crossed the line, but it is fuzzy. I just think the task of the Christian, we just say, God, thank you. I want to enjoy it. Help me not to love it.
Right.
But that's a constant battle.
It's hard
because Matt loves stuff.
Everyone loves. Well, everyone enjoys stuff.
Now we're gonna say, I don't love it. I'm just enjoying it.
Okay, I was trying to think on Sunday. I'm trying to ask myself what I might fall into that category. The only thing I drink a lot of Mountain Dew. Pop is probably the thing that if I love something too much, it might be pop. But other than shopping or fancy food or clothes or cars or none of that was really for me. Are you willing to say it? I'm not saying you do love something, but what would it be if you were what are you always tempted to have too much of? I'm putting you on the spot. I don't know if this is an exact answer. Joan and I have never had cable TV. Okay.
We have Netflix, but we have money to buy it. I mean, it's just a choice, a value.
Yeah.
But we've never had cable. And one reason I've resisted is because I love watching sports. And I'm afraid I just watch too much.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I enjoy watching football on Sunday? Well, Jesus and I enjoy doing it together.
There you go.
That's what I say.
Same answer.
Jesus and I enjoy drinking Mountain Dew together.
Yeah.
So it is a constant effort to say, my heart loyalty needs to be with God.
Right.
Not with Mountain Dew, not with football, not with a hobby, not with clothes shopping, not with a new car, not with, the list goes on and on. Yeah. And because Jesus gave us what he did, it should be our privilege. He gave us salvation to just I just want my heart with you. And I'm going to enjoy some stuff. Thank you very much. But I don't want to love this stuff.
Yeah.
And 1 John 2, it says, do not love the world or anything in the world. And that's just a constant battle.
Yep.
Heaven someday, no more battle.
Yep. That's good. So one thing that you mentioned on Sunday that I think maybe comes counterintuitively to church people is I think we feel more holy, or I don't know what the right word is, but it feels like it's almost wrong to enjoy things sometimes. And you said something about some of us need to lighten up and spending some money every once in a while. And that's something that the church isn't known for saying stuff like that. So what do you say about that?
And I don't want to put a certain generation in a box, but the builder generation, they're in their 70s, 80s, who were either close to or heard about or on the end of the Great Depression. But that generation so values frugality and saving because they've experienced poverty. I mean, as a nation, not just as the hardship of not having stuff. And so again, I don't want to just say all chronologically gifted people, that generation but there has been obviously an appropriate teaching. Don't love the world or anything in the world. Your love for Jesus. Don't be greedy. Be content. All that is good teaching. But you combine it with, your experience coming out of the Great Depression or whatever, and you do honestly feel guilty for buying a cup of coffee at Quick Shop, let alone the expensive Starbucks stuff.
Right.
And I'm not advocating that you just start wasting money. I'm just saying you have to understand Ecclesiastes 5:19. God gave us stuff to enjoy, the ability to enjoy it. 1 Timothy 6, he gave us all good things. And so it's a balance. And I took a risk in saying, lighten up and spend some money. Like America doesn't need to hear that.
Right.
So we're already so consumer driven. But I did want to make a point, and I think there are some that shouldn't feel so guilty for going out to eat.
And I think I'm kind of a saver by nature. I mean, I spend probably more money than I should, but I still like to save. But there's kind of a danger in that if you save too much, then you put your faith in how many numbers are in your account, or or if you never spend any money, what's the point of having it in the first place, right? So it's
and
all
we're going to talk
but
about saving and hoarding this coming Sunday. But
Yep.
Okay, what else we got, Matt?
So you ended the service with a quote I really liked. It's from St. Augustine, I think, and you said it was love God and then do as you please. So last week we talked about giving first 10%, and then this week you kind of brought that back and you said, if you're doing that, you have some freedom in how you spend your money.
Right. And so I took the phrase from St. Augustine, love God, then do as you please, saying that love God is kind of the filter. And if you're doing that, do whatever you want, because that's going to keep you on the straight and narrow. I took the risk of saying, what if we change it from love God, then do as you please, to say, spend first on God, then spend as you please.
Yep.
I'm sure that can be manipulated and abused or whatever. But when it comes to like buyer's remorse, I've had people come, I shouldn't have bought that pickup, or I shouldn't have bought that condo, or bought that boat, or I shouldn't have done, and they do a little bit of confession to the priest here. Okay. And one of the things on that is I say, okay, I'm not here to run your little financial private world, but where are you at with generosity? And if you aren't spending first on God, then your guilt is probably deserved. I mean, good grief. Your priorities are out of kilter.
Yep.
But if you're generous and you spend first on God, then that kind of opens to some freedom. Can that be abused? Yes. But that's the idea. Spend first on God and then spend as you please. So have you ever had buyer's remorse or come close to it?
So I almost did this weekend. I just told you this story. So my life group from First and B, we went to Kansas City for Labor Day, and we did something very, very dangerous. We went to IKEA, and IKEA is just, I mean, if you're going to waste, or if you're going to spend money you weren't planning on spending, it's at IKEA.
Yeah, right? They just have giant hoses that suck the wallet out of your back pocket.
Everything's so cool and everything's so cheap. So you're tempted to just go nuts. So my wife and I almost came home with a new kitchen table. We weren't planning. We didn't. Okay. Almost. And I don't know if I would have had buyer's remorse or not. But the good news is we didn't get it. But it's so easy though, isn't it?
That is.
So, Okay, so one thing I wanted to talk about, and again, this is one of those things where the Bible doesn't have a nice pie chart for us, because I think a lot of people genuinely and legitimately want to be wise with their money, but they just don't really know. They have no, like, I didn't really take a personal finance class, and even if I did, there's not like a one size fits all perfect way to spend your money. And so if
Right.
somebody gets a paycheck, they might have no idea how much to go to utilities or a car or whatever. So what do you have any just advice on, like, how do we, if we're trying to be wise with our money, how do we even know where things should go?
So Joan and I have never had a budget. We're disciplined in a lot of ways. I'll wake up and do devotions. I'm disciplined with jogging. I'm disciplined, but I'm not disciplined in every area. One of the areas that I'm not disciplined in is having a budget. So it's written out and we know how much is going. We've like never done that. And I'm sure our financial world would be better off if we had done that. Okay. But honesty, right? We just don't have it. Here's what I've always said. If you give generously, and by me, my definition, a tithe, and sometimes I understand that you're giving sacrificially in your situation, you're giving less. And so this is a judgment-free zone, but just generally speaking, if you give at least a tithe, I have this right, it just takes the stupid out of you. So we give away in our church through our care fund about $60,000 to $75,000 a year. And the vast majority of that goes to people who attend our church who are in hard times financially, or friends of people, connection, because they're just scams. We give some to like a $25 gift card to, or fill their tank with gas or whatever. But overwhelmingly, we want to be wise. And so we help out those that we, say, okay, this is legit. Okay. I've been a part of church for 34 years now. And I can't remember a time when someone came in for help and I asked them, hey, have you been tithing for the last year? 10%. No one does.
Yeah.
You see, people who tithe generally have their financial world in order.
It's interesting. Yeah.
It's just like God says, if you'll do that, I'm going to reduce your greed. I'm going to increase your contentment. I'm going to take the stupidity out. You're not going to make bad financial decisions if you're tithing. It's just something I see. I can't prove that, but that's just my experience. And so when it comes to spending money, to me, it's no surprise that the only thing the Bible speaks about is giving 10% and saving for the future.
Okay. Yeah.
Those are the only two things it says. And I just argue pretty strongly. If you're giving generously and you're saving for the future, hey, it's all going to work out. Those two certainly take the stupid out of you, financially, from making bonehead decisions. And I'm sure there are exceptions to that. So when it comes to spending money, Ramsey or whoever has some really good charts of the typical, this, you should spend this percentage and no more on your mortgage, or this percent. And that's all great. Yeah. The Bible speaks to two things, give and save.
Yep.
And then it just seems that the rest works out.
Yep.
But there are some really good things through, like financial peace. We teach that annually, I think, here.
Yep. I did a probably 2 minutes of research before we came in here. And I got this fancy little chart here from our personal friend, Dave Ramsey. And I'm going to, after we're done here, I'm going to post this in the comments here, just so, in case you're wondering. Because for me, like 10% to the church and then whatever else, I want to plan a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
That's just my personality. Yeah. So here you go. This is exactly what you need to do. I'll put it in the comments there. But he says, so like housing should be 25%. Utilities 5 to 10%, transportation 10%. I thought it was interesting because on Sunday you gave some numbers of what we're like the U.S. average is.
Yeah.
And it's, of course, not surprisingly, housing, transportation, and food are all way more than what our friend Dave Ramsey says.
Yeah.
So
this isn't the top three things according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's not what it should be.
Right. It's just the average of
what it is.
Right.
And America, they don't. they don't win any awards for spending less than they earn,
Right.
starting with our government.
Yes.
And a lot of people on saving, and it's just part of us. We want money for us.
Mhm.
And so we buy, and we don't think ahead. But yeah,
Yep.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
But good stuff. And speaking of Ramsey, your life will not become worse if you do a little reading on budgeting.
Mhm.
If you go to Amazon and say Christian books on finances and order one and read it, or you do our Financial Peace University, like your life will not become worse.
Right. Yep.
It will be helpful. And it's
Mhm.
part of our Christian walk. We want God to be over every area, including money.
Yep. Would you say for most people, giving or spending, if they feel a little bit of guilt in one or the area or the other, that's a good place to start. So like if you feel like you're spending, like kind of take a look at your feelings a little bit as a kind of a good place to start. If you feel a little guilty about spending too much, start there. But or if you feel like, I should probably be giving more than I should, like it's dangerous to trust your feelings probably, but what would you?
Well, but if you're a Christian, you have the Holy Spirit in you. And there are verses that say you have Jesus in you and you have God the Father. Okay. But if you're a Christian, you have God in you. And he is not in you to be quiet. He is not in you and say, okay, I'm in Brent, but I don't want to tell him how to live. I'll just let him do his own thing. No, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, is always speaking. I mean, that's why he's in us to guide us and to lead us into all truth. And so, yes, some of our thoughts are obviously not from God.
Right.
Some of our feelings are not from God. Fear or inappropriate anger, those aren't from God.
Right.
Some of our thoughts, I had to go rob that bank. That's not from God, right?
Usually.
But God is in there to speak. And so when you have a kind of a nudge on your conscience, you ought to stop and think about that. You ought to assume, I think, as a starting point, that God is speaking. Don't start by saying, I wonder if that's me thinking or God. I wonder if that, God is in you. And he's there to lead you. He wants to lead you into all truth. He wants to lead you to the good place. And so if you do have a guilt feeling, at least pause and say, there's a good chance that's Jesus trying to hammer me a little bit. And I feel bad. I'm not giving more. Lean in that God is speaking.
Yep. Good. So kind of just, if we were to wrap up, give a preview of the past couple of weeks, give 10%, save some. It's okay to spend money. God wants you to be happy, but don't go overboard.
Yeah.
So if you missed church the last 3 weeks,
Matt just covered it.
There you go. So far, we have no questions. So all I can assume is that we're just doing a great job and everyone is crystal clear on how to spend their money. I'm sure that's the case. But so if we got a few more minutes, if you have a question, feel free to holler or type it in there. We'll try to get to it before we wrap up here. But I wanted to move to next week.
Yeah.
Or this coming Sunday. So what are you talking about? And you want to give us a quick reminder of the special class this weekend?
Okay. So again, there's 4 things you can do with money. You have to earn it first before you can do. You got to get it before
or steal it,
or get it inherited to you or given to you. Okay. Start a GoFundMe page or something. But you got to earn it. And then once you got it, there are just 3 things to do. You give it away, you spend it, or you save it. And so we're on the 4th thing this Sunday, and it's on saving money. So we're going to talk about why save. And I've asked half a dozen people, why should you save money? And they just look at me blankly because, is that a trick question?
Oh, yeah.
But we're going to talk about why we should save. We're going to talk about the line between saving and hoarding. Just like last week, it was the line between enjoying money and loving money.
Right.
It's a fuzzy line.
Yep.
Well, we're going to meet Mr. Fuzzy Line again. And it's between how much do we save? And when have we crossed the line toward hoarding? Okay. We will talk. There are some interesting verses about inheritance in the Bible. We're going to talk about wills because we should plan for the future. God is the ultimate planner. He plans ahead. In Ephesians, it says, before the foundation of the world, he chose you. That's long-range planning.
That was a long time ago.
That is long-range planning. He has already planned out how this world is going to end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. God is the ultimate plan ahead guy.
Yep.
So we should be planning ahead. And with our money, it's the responsible thing to do as Christians to have a will. A lot of Christians don't have a will. So we're going to talk about that. There is a phrase called legacy giving. And the idea of legacy is leaving something positive after you're gone.
Right.
Okay. And so in your will or trust to, how are you going to disperse what assets you have? You don't have to be wealthy and you don't have to be old to start thinking about wills and think, how, God, do you want me to disperse this money after I'm 6 foot under? And there are ways to disperse it to charity, to your kids, to organizations. But we have a couple of guests here from an organization called MB Foundation. It's connected to our Mennonite Brethren denomination, and they are all about stewardship of our money. They're all about saving. They're all about giving. They really have an expertise in wills and helping Christians plan for the future. And so we have a workshop in the second and third hours in here at church on Sunday, where they're just going to be answering questions and explaining this. And at church, we just want to be a resource to help you follow God well. And that includes money. And so we're talking about, how do you earn it? How do you give it? How do you save it? How do you spend it? Yep. And so we want to resource you, and just don't think that you have to be wealthy or retired to start thinking about wills and legacy giving. I hope we got a bunch of people show up at those 2 hours in the activity center. It's going to be really good.
Yep. I'm very old and very wealthy, so I need to go to this workshop.
You're past due.
Past due.
Like Joan and I have a will, but we actually need to update it. And maybe this Sunday will finally give me the kick in the backside to get it done. As our girls are older, but our will just still says who they're going to go to if we die, because that was when
they're married.
They're married now, so we don't have authority over them anymore.
Right. But
But our will needs updating. So I'm case in point number 1.
There you go. So don't follow Brent's again.
Yeah, please don't. Is it 12:30? Because this is going down fast.
3 more minutes. I think we're done.
Okay.
As we're wrapping up, anything else we're missing on? Spending money, the past couple weeks, things we've been talking about. How should we wrap up today?
At the risk of talking about giving, this idea that I mentioned earlier, that when people give, God takes the stupid out of them. When you give, you do the proverbial kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You really do honor God and his kingdom, but it calibrates your heart. Where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. And if your treasure is your hobby, it's football, it's Mountain Dew. If that's your treasure, your heart's going to follow.
Right.
Okay. If you put your financial treasure into the kingdom and you give sacrificially and generously, and you're thinking, I could pay my house off a whole lot faster if I didn't do this, but I'm going to do this. It's a sacrifice, but I'm going to give. Where you put your treasure, your heart follows. And there is such freedom of conscience when you're aligned with God. And so when you give, you're honoring God, but you're also making your life cleaner. Your priorities are going to be better. It's just going to be a better way to wake up. It's so wonderful to not have guilt.
Yeah.
Say, I really should pray more. Well, I really should give more. I really should. So giving is just a great thing. And saving, the big thing, of course, and we'll talk about it on Sunday, is you don't want to put your hope in your net worth. You don't want to hoard. And we'll try and unpack that. And we're going to get to the end and it's going to be fuzzy. But God is honored by our efforts at being aware.
Yep.
Whether enjoying or loving stuff, or whether saving or hoarding. He's just honored by our efforts. So we're going to talk about that on Sunday.
Good. Looking forward to it. And it's Thursday. And speaking of football, it's the first game. And you don't have to have cable. It's on regular TV. So you don't even have to feel guilty about spending money on cable. Watch football tonight. So.
Hey, I thought of one more thing.
Yeah.
Next this week is on, coming up in 2 or 3 days, is on saving.
Yeah.
But I did want to say we're having a bonus week.
Oh, yeah,
and
that's right.
I don't know if a bonus is a good thing or not, but we're going to talk about debt on the 5th week. And so that's not part of the 4 things you can do, really. But we're going to talk about debt. Very, very interesting. So hang in there in these weeks. It's going to be good stuff.
Cool. So go spend all your money now before we talk about debt. Before you get in trouble with Pastor Brent, go buy your lotto tickets right now.
Yeah. Sign up for another credit card. That's a great way to live.
Yeah. Our friend Dave Ramsey would not agree with that. So. All right. Well, hey, thank you again for watching. And if you think of any questions throughout the week, shoot them on this video right here or send us a message on Messenger, and we'll try to answer next week. And next week, we'll be talking more about saving, and maybe we'll get into debt a little bit. So hope you can join us next Thursday back at noon. Happy Thursday, and have a great day. We'll see you next week. See ya.
See ya.